Hello everybody. Today I would like to share two typical examples of strategic slide. And probably the best way to begin to understand what strategic slide is the chess motto, mistakes come in pairs. And for me, I think what that means is that when you look at games, human games, you will often see one player make not just one mistake, but more than one mistake until that player hits some kind of rock bottom. And this happens, interestingly, to all levels of player. I'm pretty sure it's happened to every single one of us, even the very best. And maybe the only difference to the average player and the super GM is the super GM can catch it perhaps faster. And that involves admitting your mistake while it's going on, while it's in process. McCanis attack, beautiful opening. And here actually, in some ways, a thing about opening study. When I was a kid, it was kind of considered that Black had two moves, c5 and d5, and this is like pre-computer time. And d5, I think probably, unfortunately for white, is probably a roughly equal position, though an interesting one. And with c5, the idea is that the pawn on e5 is going to become weak and Black is going to somehow live. And I think maybe even this could be one of my examples for how I learned to be a tempo fiend. Because it's actually the case that Black is, well, at least much worse. Not getting... White has way more than compensation for the pawn here in this variation. And, the standard thing goes here, knight e5. And Black is going to come under a whole lot of stress with bishop f4 and knight b5. So, and, it's a thing, too, now with the computers that you can just turn it on and then it's like, no, you're not doing well here, my friend. Okay, so... in this position after queen c7, which I think is let's call it a curious move, I'm certain that white is doing great, but that his next move is a big mistake. And the point is that you need to understand that you're willing to give up that pawn. So, again, I haven't looked at the computer or anything, but bishop f4 makes a whole lot of sense to me, where if he plays knight e5, he's going to come under that pin, and at some point knight d5 is going to hurt him. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the move. And f4, let's talk about why f4 is bad. And this is, I guess, already what we're going to call the beginning of this strategic slide here, is that f4 really kills your own bishop. It gives him this post later for the knight, and obviously this is going to be a problem. But most importantly, it gives him time, and that's what the guy needs above all. So, knight d4, knight h6, okay, b6. And I don't know exactly what's going on here, but I like Black's position quite a bit here. So now what's I think happens is it's difficult for white. It's more difficult for white to play this position because first of all, it's not clear where your king wants to go. Black can be a little bit more patient about where the king goes. When you basically set up to play castle's queenside here, it is cruising for a bruising because that, how should we put it, he is going to be faster with his play when that all comes about. So the terrifying thing here is that you needed to somehow, this would have been difficult, but somehow recognize that your position is already a little bit perilous here. So maybe if, for example, you had come to the realization that things aren't so simple, maybe something like bishop e4, bishop b7, queen d3. I'm just making that up on the fly. All I'm saying is you need to try to moderate the tension in the position, if that makes sense. Instead, you went all out, and I know how this happens because you felt like, oh, I'm entitled to an advantage, but now I'm really concerned. And there you go with the castles. And his king is safer than yours. And I could have, later I'm going to do a game with opposite sides castling where this could have been part of that show as well, with the opposite sides castling. But this one, I think, is just obvious that black is going to get there first. And like I've said on the show many times, in opposite sides castling, it's really important to recognize that the value of time goes up. So, for example, normally we say a pawn is worth 3 tempi, and that's a good rule of thumb. But with opposite sides castling, because the initiative is so important, time is going to be worth even more than it normally is, where we say a 3 tempi are worth a pawn. Okay, h3. Whew, I don't like it, Kevin. I don't like it. You're doing a game where you're like, yeah, I don't like the game. I guess something like queen d3 or king b1. And what you're doing in some ways is admirable because you're saying, I want to shut down the knight on f5, but A, it's hard to do it, and B, he is coming for you on the c file very quick here. Rook c8. He could have. I don't really understand why that rook was necessary. b3, and that's just a sad day when we have to play b3 because he is going to come at us here. a6, and already it's looking really bad. g4, b5, and honestly, I think it's, from a practical perspective, it's over now. Because, and honestly, maybe, I don't know about taking the queen. It is a winning endgame, though, so he can't complain too much. And actually, black finished this off pretty nicely here. G8, very nice move. Snip, and we have a resigns because of knight f4, h2, rook b1, bishop d4. So, an instructive game. Dr. Ohm here. I'm going to flip the colors. And Dr. Ohm is playing Nacional, aka Juan, who is going to be he's going to be next on the list. So they either know each other or just are playing on the same site, playing slow chess. By the way, let me give a plug for the ChessDojo. We have a pretty great set of round robins and ladder going on, where it's a really good place to play people at a longer time control, and then you can set that time up with them. You can have it be in a competitive format. And what I think is maybe the coolest part about it is, although we don't have any way to completely eliminate cheating or anything like that, the culture of people that are there, just the people who are drawn to be part of this ChessDojo Discord, they are not the kind of player who is going to be cheating. And I realize, no one is immune from the cheating mania that's going on out there. But I think if you were going to look for a place that would be, the most crime-free, as it were, the suburb. We're a suburb of crime-free chess. I hadn't thought of it that way. Then it's a good place to look. All right, in this game, Dr. Ohm gets the dream position of what's known as the Portuguese here. And the reason I consider it a dream here is black now got everything off that he wanted, where he's played only one pawn move, and by castling, he's developed the rook on d8 immediately. Everything has gone his way, and you know, this is already a pretty tense moment for white. Knight c3, queen h5. And let me just say something dogmatic about the Scandinavian. In a lot of these positions, the whole idea is that this is a really big problem for white, and the pawn on d4 oftentimes will feel like like an isolated pawn. Okay, so that's just a general idea. Already it's kind of difficult for white. Castles e5, and white makes, I think we're going to call it a pretty, well, it's a very tense moment. He plays h3, and after ed4, it's already a bad business. White could have played knight d4, or should have played, let's say, bishop e2, knight ce2, and it's not totally clear what's going on. Dr. Ohm gives this later as a slight advantage for white. I don't really believe that. I think black is fine here. Yeah, I gotta believe that black is totally fine here. In any case, let's look at what happened. hg4, knight g4, exclam, bishop g5, f6, and basically the game is over. He couldn't take on d4 because of mate on h2. So we're now going to enter phase two, phase two of our struggle, because this is totally winning, and now Dr. Ohm needs to finish it off. This is a different kind of slide. I think this slide could be called the complacent slide, where you have some kind of beautiful position, and you just say to yourself, man, this thing is over. And it's true. This position is completely toast for white. But we do have to finish it off. And let's say this is an example of where we have the pawns plural, and the compensation here. We're up 2 pawns, and the attack on the H file is still totally overwhelming. So, and here we have a good comment. Actually, I was wondering about this. Maybe this, I'm not sure if this is what static meant. Static was talking about 95 GG. And I think I was looking for this kind of thing too. FG is, of course, also GG. But I was thinking maybe the guy was somehow going to survive with maybe a bishop f4 or a how else? Or maybe a bishop h4, something weird like that. In any case, let's say that Dr. Ohm's move was fine. And here, okay, so here he's played fantastic. And now the slide begins where the obvious move is something like bishop b4. Let's say about that even if black wasn't up the pawns, he would still be winning this position because he's got the better king. And because of the opposite color bishops, it means that the power of the initiative is just going to be amazing. And so bishop b4 is a nice move. I'm certain like things like bishop c5 and whatever are also good. This move is sad because your queen was amazing on h6. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. And then you get hit with this. I assume, again, complacent. You're just like, I'm winning this thing, it's over. And then all of a sudden it starts getting weird. And now you got to deal with a knight f7 problem. Again, something like bishop b4. Knight h3. Okay. Now, are you still winning this thing? You got to think so, right? Something like bishop b4 now. But okay, back to this queen h6 thing we're obsessed with. And now, like our knight on g4 is hanging, we got to still be doing good. And then all of a sudden, things got hokey. And one thing just to note about how this all went down is suddenly, now, because you dilly-dallied so long, you are actually down in development. And it's very surprising. Okay, d1. Now, do I think you are still fundamentally okay? You gotta be. You gotta be. And h5, df8. The guy's kind of dancing around on you, but you're still fine. Look at that move. Very impressive. Very impressive. I don't know if it works, but it's very impressive. All right, queen e1 does not do the trick. Let's see here. All right, so queen h5. And let's see your original intention here, knight c6. Now, right, the computer is saying for him that this is better for black. Obviously, for a human, it wouldn't be completely obvious right away. Here with this queen h5 thing, it's insane, really. It's like one of these tricks you do when, you as Tal said, you want to fall for his trick, because now he's opening up the H file, and we're kind of back in business here. Yeah, he's tied himself all the way up here. And you write that bishop g3 should now be winning, and let's just say this, that something's going to be winning here, right? Something's going to be winning. And right, the sad thing about rook e8 is that the rook is doing something on the f file. If chess had 3 rooks, then we put our 3rd rook on the e file. All right, something terrible happened here, and that is white escaped, and they got a draw. Oh, Dr. Ohm, it was sad. It was sad. So 3 different kinds of slip, of strategic slip. And we've all felt the complacency one, right? Just feels like, okay, now we're going to go cruise control and it's going to be over.